finally, we would like to thank our sponsors today for helping us with this program, Standard Diamond and Gaggenau. Okay, and I'm going to pass it off to Scott and Monica from XTEN Architecture. Thanks so much for being here, everyone.
Thank you so much, Corinne. First of all, thank you to the AIA for inviting us to be a part of the AIA House Tours 2020. It's the first time we're participating, and so we're super excited to be here. Another thank you to the owners of Skyhouse, Daryl and Terry Eaton. Obviously, without their commitment and hiring us to do the project, we wouldn't be speaking to you today. So we are grateful that they allow us to do so. Another just few quick thank yous I would like to share are with Team Dobkin Construction. They were an invaluable partner for us, and really with the help of Merlin, who shepherded the project along from start to finish, it was just a joy to work with them. Anina Bach from XTEN Architecture. I don't know if she's on here yet, but big thank you. She was the project architect, did an amazing job. Going on maybe a little bit more towards the presentation of today, I would like to thank Alison Palevsky, Steve King, Sam Frost, Sophia from our office. They really helped us complete this presentation so that we could show the house to you today, since we're not able to walk through the house with you. Thank you to the vendors. Thank you to the sponsors. So that's just a quick thank you, because as you know, building anything is a group effort. And you kind of have to just find exactly the right constellation of players to create something like what we were able to do here at Skyhouse. Just a little bit about XTEN Architecture. As you may know, my late husband, Austin Kelly, and I founded the firm in the year 2000. What was important to us from the beginning was just to create architecture that was, you know, we wanted to combine the Swiss precision with the more free and wild California sculptural life that you can have here and just play. And we started in 2000. It's been 20 years. Austin was with us until 2015, and since then, Scott Otterstrom, my partner, we have just carried on with this mission to create homes for people to enjoy, to create a calm and quiet, simple space that would feel good to be in. So that's a little bit about the firm, and now maybe we just go straight into some of the images of the house. The Skyhouse sits on the hills, on the Hollywood Hills, up in the Bird Streets, and you know, just being up there, you look down on the City of Angels. You see this an enormous grid of lights at night, and so the inspiration for the house really came from the city of Los Angeles, the grid. We had visited the Beyeler Museum in Basel, Switzerland, prior to working on this project, and I'm sure a lot of you know this museum. It's just this very elegant structure that Renzo Piano built in 1997, where he was inspired by the agricultural fields that are adjacent to it. And he basically took these very simple and rural walls and created a museum based on very clean, simple lines. And he put this super light skylight roof on these walls. So just this very simple concept created such a powerful space. And so with Skyhouse, you know, if we if we go, these are diagrams of some of our other projects, but there has been sort of this idea of using, playing with solids and voids, and the space in between is something different. Typically in our projects, that's the public space, and then the more private zones are within the solid spaces. So at Skyhouse, which is on the next slide here, you see these 4 shapes that are dashed, and between those 4 shapes is a sea of skylights. There's 42 altogether, and really that's the idea. You know, from here it just became about simplifying and honing in on this idea to make it a reality. So the next slides, you can see the plans. This is a little bit zoomed in now. You're basically at a cul-de-sac. The road kind of dips down at the end, and you're just at this very calm, quiet space. And what we attempted to do was create this layered movement through these volumes that we were placing very carefully into the hillside. So if you see here, you see a little bit of the cul-de-sac here. You enter into a courtyard, and from there, there's glass doors. In the beginning, it's all closed. It's kind of a monastic approach. You don't really know what is behind these volumes, but once you come in, you're in a completely different space. The sky is above you, and you know that was a little bit the reason we called it the Skyhouse. It is all about the connection of sitting on this land, looking up. You walk in, all the spaces that have these square hatch skylights, that's the public space. Number 2 is the living room. And then in the 4 remaining blocks, we have kitchen and family room. The master bedroom is 6, 7, and 8. And then there's 2 bedrooms kind of tucked away with their own private courtyards. That's 9 and 10. And number 5 is a study. So really the family, you know, what they asked of us, and they really wanted a space that is comfortable, where they could just feel where it was private, yet there was an openness to the view. Take you to the next plan. So these are some of the service spaces on the lower level, the garage that you access through this kind of curved entry ramp. And then number 2 is kind of bar area that is flanked by number 3, the screening room, a guest bedroom, and the gym. So as you can see down on this level, it's basically guest quarters and secondary spaces. Now we can move on to this is the roof plan, where basically you just see the roof plane with the skylights, the most important feature of the house. Like I mentioned, the skylight is the big idea, I suppose, of this project. And in this section, you get a little bit of an idea of how that all works.
So I think I'd like to talk a little bit just about how, how some of these initial thoughts and ideas for the project were kind of realized into a built form. I think one of the critical things for us was really expressing the main concept of these 4 solid volumes. You know, expressing that on the street is kind of a very kind of understated and quiet representation of these white abstract volumes set in the landscape. I think also the relation to the landscape was a very critical part of this project, which you kind of saw in this section that preceded this. That you see it in these slides where the building was really nestled into the hillside, So the, both stories are kind of buried on the north side of the project. And so they kind of emerge from the landscape. And then we've kind of added the entry to the driveway as this discrete kind of slice through the landscape. And so there you kind of transition from seeing these white volumes sit on these board-formed concrete walls. Here you kind of enter into the more private courtyard space through a stainless steel pivot door. You're kind of greeted with the skylights of the house. Once you're inside the courtyard, we have these kind of metal powder-coated screens provide privacy to a more private courtyard off one of the main bedrooms, which all of those are operable, so you can kind of open it up or close it off. You're stepping over a black terrazzo reflecting pool. It kind of ties into the main flooring for the house, which is all white terrazzo. And I think this, really set the stage for a very kind of reduced and refined material palette that's seen throughout the house, and I think carried in through the landscape of the house as well. You can see here the screen was kind of designed and angled so that it provided privacy to the bedroom, but really opened up, to the sky. So your eye is kind of always drawn upwards. And I think what's really nice about this is you can see the shadows that are cast on the white plaster walls and how, that just kind of changes throughout the day. So, you really get these changes in light, you're seeing that from inside of the house. And then this is just a single glass pivot door leading you into the house. And here's where you're really exposed to the skylights, the grid of skylights, providing this kind of soft glow down onto the spaces. I don't know, Monica, if you wanted to talk more about those.
Yeah, I mean, the light obviously in Southern California is very strong. So it really became a challenge to have this field of skylights. And, this is not Switzerland where there's a lot more clouds in the sky. So just to get these skylights to filter the light in the specific way that it needed to be done, it took a lot of modeling and a lot of know-how from the builders. I think we have some construction shots of that process, and you can see it will give you a little bit of an idea of what it took to make these kind of bell-shaped skylights look so light and simple. There was a lot of thought that went into this. Here you see Merlin up on the ladder, testing a few things. And you see the sort of underbelly underneath these, the white sheets that lined them in the end. Sophie, maybe you can go back to that shot one more time. There you go.
Yeah, these were all kind of CNC cut off-site and then assembled on-site and lifted into place. And I think the main driver of these was really the quality of the light. And I think some of the things that we also had to deal with were just providing level of comfort in the space. So, there was a lot that went into this in terms of just kind of like reducing the amount of heat gain for the project and tinting the skylights. It's kind of 2 layers of a PVC stretch ceiling at the top, which really gives you that diffuse glow. And I think it also really helps this, kind of transform itself from day to night. So at night, you're really getting the glow from the natural sun, and at night, these all become, you know, backlit with LEDs, providing the same kind of calm glow. The other thing you really see here is just the kind of level of rigor and precision. These really, in a way, drove the project, you know, in the organization of the project. And these lines and alignments were kind of tracked through the volumes, down to the divider strips, to the terrazzo, to the way that the sliders were laid out. Just kind of blending everything together harmoniously.
And when you're in this space where in the skylight area, you sort of get a view out to the four cardinal directions. That's where you don't only have the skylights, but there's also a vista. So this is like you're standing in the middle of the living room, looking out over to the Hollywood Hills. When you're in the hallway going to the bedrooms, you sort of have this just clear shot into the courtyard that has a sort of orchard of trees. We try to be very systematic and give you an interesting perspective wherever you are in the house. So here we are downstairs. This is kind of the approach after you park your car from the garage. You walk up the set of stairs that brings you up into the main space. And this is also terrazzo floor, terrazzo stairs. A nice wall to hang a beautiful piece of art.
I think there was really just about trying to keep the stair kind of as clean and simple as possible, letting the lower run kind of read more solid along with the basement. The upper run, much lighter, an open tread stair that just brought as much light as possible down to the basement. And then it's just kind of executing some of these details with recessed handrails into the side of the walls, which I think really allowed the glass guardrail to remain kind of nice and clean. This, I think this shows you just the connection of this lower hallway down to the bar area and some of the other program spaces, the gym and the media room, and how that all ties together.
So here we are in the kitchen, pull-tab kitchen, Gaggenau appliances. And again, you know, this kind of the German engineering of these kitchens is just sort of blended seamless with the design of the house. You see a travertine wall that contains the second fireplace of the house. So the left side here is the family room, and there's a pantry kitchen that is completely disguised, really. It's just part of the bull-top wall elements.
I think one thing I'd like to add here is really the effort to integrate the kitchen seamlessly into the project, so that really it's kind of like the dark stained rift oak panels that were kind of an essential part of the kitchen really was used throughout the house. So again, just kind of keeping a very refined material palette. And you know, I think Monica had mentioned the door to the pantry. You know, it's just kind of tricky areas where we have to integrate an architectural element into this custom kitchen.
Yeah, Sophie is pointing to the entrance into the butler's kitchen there, which is just completely disguised.
here, I think this really shows you this kind of free-flowing connection between the main spaces of the house out onto the pool deck, and really kind of taking advantage of the views that you get from the site. This is just kind of execution with the, if you could go back one, Sophie. I think you see some of the detailing here of the project, just in terms of the zero edge pool, the recessed Fleetwood sliders, kind of the custom terrazzo HVAC grills on the floor.
Yes, it really was about reduction and distilling the building down to just something that was very, very calm, and just, you know, this kind of understated space, reduction, as opposed to just adding more and more pieces to it. I guess maybe this shot is not quite making my point as well as some others, but you know, you kind of get this less is more feeling when you're walking through the house, which I think is probably the other person or the other architect that was inspiring to us for this project, the Mies van der Rohe Barcelona Pavilion, which is, you see here, beautiful building, just elegant, simple, natural stone, and keeping things very, very light. And so we were influenced by that as well.
Yeah, so here we're marble walls, really kind of defining these solid spaces in the middle of these voids, coming across into the living room.
Looking back at the master bedroom. And then looking the other way, we're standing at the entrance to the master bedroom, looking across the hill.
The master bath was kind of positioned so you'd have easy access out to the pool terrace, but also be fairly private and tucked away. So we kind of opened it up more towards this orchard that you see here in the background.
So here you're standing in the side yard. You can kind of get a glimpse of the master tub here on your left, and you see the orchard.
And I think one of the critical parts of this project is really the landscape, and you know, which was largely driven by the owner. He had I think a very delicate touch when it came to that, and it just fit seamlessly with the architecture, both in this kind of like clean, reduced aesthetic for the plant material. This is just but it also became really important for all the interior spaces that were kind of always opening out to these more private outdoor areas. So this is the kind of courtyard you see when you enter the house, but this is the experience from the bedroom.
Yeah, this is the other bedroom. So they're adjacent. They are in plan. They are identical, but their gardens are different. So they have, you know, they're very balanced, but we try to to put a twist on everything. So you don't walk in and go, oh, same thing. We wanted to bring something unique to both sides of this bedroom element. This is the study on the left. You know, this wall is really backing up against the hillside, so it's very cool in the space, but we added these 3 skylights that wash the back wall and filter the light into the space. And sitting at that desk, you have a controlled view of the entry courtyard. So you see who's coming in or going.
I think one of the things just to point out in terms of sustainability, I think most of our work is, you know, we're not as interested in kind of expressing the sustainability in the project, but, you know, really designing through some key sustainable concepts. One of the biggest of those is just backing the house up into this hillside, which keeps, you know, that whole wing of the house in the basement at a kind of nice, cool 60, below 70 degrees throughout the year.
Yeah, really, we try to just make every move count and sort of take advantage of that hill as opposed to just fighting it. It also created a private house for them. You know, the major move in terms of planning was to create this kind of L-shaped configuration, which you're sort of putting your back against the hillside, you're tucking yourself in there, but then you're opening up to the city. At night, the views are really spectacular. During the day too, actually.
I think one of the things that we're trying to show with this video too is how the stillness of the architecture really helps kind of express the movement inherent in landscape, right? So a lot of the grasses along the taller native grasses that you see always kind of set against a very clean, calm surface. Here you'll notice the kind of XTEN planter for the single olive tree in the backyard with a play on the skylights. So we use kind of the same shape. And you can also see how the project is really integrated into the hillside.
So here we're revisiting the family room and kitchen again, and just showing this open connection so that the owners can really, you know, they're in the pool, but they have these very clean connections to all the spaces. It feels very open. And yeah, this is the last shot. This is a drone photograph that Steve King took, and I think it just kind of, it shows the skylights and the simple massing very well.
One of the stories I like to tell about this shot is it was literally the last shot that we took on the photo shoot. And, you know, the photographer, Steve King, was kind of flying the drone in after taking some shots from the canyon side. And he, you know, he just kind of like totally stopped and was like, Scott, you got to come take a look at this, where you really see, we're just trying to find the shot that really expressed the skylights as the main concept of the house, and this one seemed to be it.
And the reflection of the skylights in the pool. Yeah, so this these are the images we wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for your interest.
Very beautiful, Monica and Scott. Thank you so much. So at this point, unless we'll open it up to questions. And again, you can either put your questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand. But we like it to be a little bit interactive. I see lots of bravo, really beautiful. It is such a stunning home and project. And I know this is the point where everyone needs to, we just need one person to ask a question and then we'll get tons. Someone is asking, is there a way we can see the pictures again?
But of course. Yeah, we could, Sophie, I don't know if you can just let the slideshow go through a second time.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Monica and Scott. This is Carlo. How are you guys doing? Congratulations. This is an amazing project. It's really, really beautiful. And clearly, you know that this is an award-winning project for the Residential Architecture Awards that we organize every year. But I wanted to share, more than a question, I wanted to share a comment that the jury had. They called this a very Stanley Kubrick-esque house. And it was meant to be a compliment, of course. So was there any inspiration from you know, one of those white rooms that you must have seen somewhere in museums, or is just completely unrelated?
You know, it was unrelated, but you know, we'll take that compliment any day.
It was great to hear, to get that comment. It just kind of changed the way we thought about it.
Well, it's definitely a very cinematic house, for sure.
Definitely. We have a question from Ronette. Riley, Ronette, do you want to ask your question to Monica and Scott?
Yes, I just was wondering, how long was the design period and how long was the construction?
So the design and permitting took, I think we were probably just under, probably right around 10 months for that. And then construction was right around 3 years.
It's really beautiful.
And then we have a question from Brent about sustainability. Brent, do you want to unmute yourself? All right, I'll ask this question. Can you expand on the sustainability approaches to the project?
Well, I think, you know, what I always like to point to in terms of just using the thermal mass of the hillside to really insulate the whole house, at least that side of it, is kind of one of the key concepts here. You know, I think the way that we treated the skylights in order to reduce solar heat gain on those, as well as the sliders.
And the overhangs, you know, really the orientation of the building, the way this was all mapped out in plan was very, I mean, we modeled the light and controlled it. So yes, there is a lot of glass, but there are large overhangs, zones that just keep the, like Scott said, the hillside does a lot of work for us as well. There's cross ventilation. Most of the sliders open. So it just, I mean, some of these things are not new, but you know, you can, if you just play your cards right, you don't even need to do additional things that may be a little bit more high tech. I mean, these are very low tech and simple solutions.
Yeah, that includes kind of expanding the insulation in the walls, adding the rigid insulation to the exterior of the house. We've got 2 large rain storage tanks located underneath the pool that irrigate the landscape below just through gravity.
I had a question.
And the planting as well. you know, it was a very important, the owner had a big hand in the landscaping of this project. And just to use materials and plants that do well in Southern California, where you don't need to water, use a lot of water. So again, you know, a very simple idea, but it had it created a lot of dividends in the end in terms of sustainability.
Great. We have a question from, and I can't pronounce your name. It's OZGE. If you want to go next. If not, okay, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Robert Heckelfinger.
Okay.
And the father of Moni. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. And Özge, the student from Turkey, made it possible for me to see this. And you see in the background, you see Moni's living room, where she was climbing up on the oven up there. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's thank you.
Who is this?
Thank you, Dad.
Özge,
You know, I would like to say thank you so much, Dad. He is.
It's your dad. Oh my gosh.
He's an architect, still practicing, has his own firm in Switzerland. So I'm just thank you so much for staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning to be part of this.
Thank you.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. We could not, you know, as much as we all probably hate virtual by now, you couldn't do it. We couldn't have had that unless we were virtual. Okay, so next I'm going to go to Human. Can you unmute yourself? I see that your hand is raised.
Sure.
Is this home a family home?
So we had two questions. Hi, Monica and Scott.
Hi.
Hi there. One was my son's question, which was, is this a family home?
Yes,
And
it is. Yes, it is.
There you go. He wants to live in this house, he said.
Thank you so much.
Me too.
My question, yeah, exactly. My question was, you know, the COVID pandemic has made people rethink public spaces. Are you thinking if there's going to be any effect on single family homes and residences that you're building, or any other things that you think about in terms of the future proofing of our homes?
You know, I think the Skyhouse, for the owner, he used this study. You know, once he couldn't go back to his office, he nestled in there so nicely and just enjoyed that space. I think if you have that kind of study at home, you know, why would you want to go to an office building? So there are certain things in the house that you're happy to be there, you know, and if you have a great workspace, why would you want to leave? So, but I'm sure there's more than, you know, more thinking that can go on now that can improve all these things even more.
Yeah.
When we planned this, this is obviously pre-COVID, but
Sure. That working from home and even homeschooling are two things that have really hit us hard over the last few months.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, one, it's kind of like giving some flexibility, right, to these spaces and their uses. I think that's a big one. And the other one, just kind of hitting on what Monica was saying, is, you know, really kind of creating a sanctuary for out of your house. I think everybody's spending more time probably at home than they would like.
So I noticed, Marcos, you had a question earlier. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, amazing project. Congratulations. Really amazing. I had a question about the skylight system. It looks very simple and clean. I'm sure it was very difficult technically. How did you guys address structure? Are there steel beams or parallels? And second question is, what was the concern or the issue with respect to the reveals being black? Did you guys have any design iterations with that black element? Thank you.
It was more, so the first, I'll address the first question. Here you can see, so a grid of steel beams basically form the main structure for each of the skylights. And then, you know, it was wood construction attached to that to help create the structure for the cone to rest in. And the black reveal, we looked at a few options just on site in terms of mock-ups. And I think what the black reveal really did is it gave a crispness to the edge of each of these panels that really helped accentuate them. And I think the tricky part of that, right, is that by accentuating them, you had, you know, everything had to be right on. So the contractors and the subcontractors were all on board and up for the challenge. So it was an amazing execution by them.
Yeah, initially we did not expect to have these kind of graphic black lines, but it was just working out the details that led us to this solution. And the thinness of those boards, you know, I think if those lines weren't there, it would feel heavier. It reveals the material. It creates this additional level of just sort of graphic array that it's we were happy with it in the end. And some of these model shots that you saw earlier on, you know, we built those in our office. We actually had a 1-to-1 model of one of these skylights, which was quite the, you know, we are architects, we are not contractors, but we wanted to see wanted to make sure that these skylights had the perfect proportion.
Yeah, it looks like you guys integrated the sprinkler system as well, kind of hidden.
Yes, we had to, yes.
Great work.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Carol, you had a question about what kind of trees are in the orchard. If you want to unmute yourself as well to elaborate.
Yeah, so they're pear trees.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I was curious about. I was wondering if they were fruiting trees or if they were, I actually couldn't identify it from the image.
Yes. I haven't seen any fruit on them yet, though.
Yeah. So. I believe they're non-fruiting pears.
Okay. Yeah.
And we had an additional question from Brent. He was wondering what kind of sliding doors are used for the exterior.
So these are Fleetwoods. And you can see in most spaces, they tuck out of the way completely.
And this is a good question, and you can unmute yourself if you want. Do you have an image of the interior during the night? How is it resolved, the lights during the evening in the area with the skylight?
You know, all the photographers want to work when it's daylight. So yeah, but that would be interesting to get in here. This one shows it a little bit. That's probably the only one that we have that late at night.
Okay. I've gone through most of the questions. I'm sure most people have, you guys have other questions. Everyone has really hung on for the whole presentation and the Q&A.
I think Brent Miller has a question, but his mic is not working. What kind of sliding doors are used in the exterior?
Oh, we got that question.
Oh, you got that question. Right?
Yeah, it's okay.
Sorry.
Carlos, very helpful. He doesn't want us to miss anybody.
You know what, Corinne, I just spotted Anina Bach. Maybe she would like to say a few words. Anina, do you mind unmuting yourself?
Hi, everybody.
Okay. Hi. I'm
hi.
so glad you could join.
Yes, I'm happy to be here. So I was the project architect on this project from the very beginning all the way through to C of O. And it was such an awesome project. It was a challenge. Everything looks so simple and easy. And, you know, we just had a great team. And it was just an honor to be a part of this project. But like, for example, like those giant skylights, we had to figure out how to get the Fleetwood motor and the motor for the shades so we could service them. So, I mean, that in itself was a challenge. So we had to make one of those skylights operable. And we worked with a great team and they came up with an awesome solution, and you can't even tell that one of those is removable. And, you know, there were just so many small little things that we had to problem solve. And I don't know. That's
Yeah, great job, Nina.
Yeah, and thank you to the AIA team for, you know, giving us the props on the back for, you know, this project. We're all very proud of it, so.
Thank you. So Marcos, you're so good at asking questions. Do you have another one?
Yeah, I do. Is the front door seem to have a thinner profile than the back doors? Was that a different system, or was that also a Fleetwood system?
The glass door.
Yeah, this one here.
So this is kind of a custom pivot door done by by Malibu Glass, who is a glazing subcontract on the project. And I think you also see the two fixed panels next to it, which you know, we're able to keep those mullions very thin. I think the side rails are about this. I think those are the same as the Fleetwood doors, and really it's just the bottom rail that we were able to reduce. We don't have the rollers.
So I have kind of a homeowner question with the skylights, which are so amazing. Is there any sort of special cleaning or consideration they had to take with that before putting them in? Just because there's so many of them, and I know that that's usually an issue with just when there's just a few of them.
I mean, the good thing with, so one, they're easily accessible just in terms of cleaning, as of the way that the house is oriented. And the other aspect is because we've kind of got the two layers of the PVC below, you know, I think you never really have the instance where you're looking up seeing a dirty skylight, right? So, you know, any little bit of dirt that does get up there, it's not really translated to the interior.
In other words, you don't see if a leaf or something like that were to sit on the skylight, you wouldn't see that because of the filtered section that we worked out.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can just go up.
Hi.
You know, because of the way the house sits up against the hillside, you can get on the roof and just hose it down if need be.
Very smart. I think someone just tried to unmute yourself. You can speak if you'd like.
Yes, Klaus here. To follow up on the skylights, Scott mentioned they were CNC cut. What material was cut by the CNC process?
So we used MDO, just kind of like a higher grade, exterior grade MDF product. Really just helping to create a kind of flat white surface for the skylights. Something that's going to stay.
So then the MDO is then coated with the PVC is applied to the MDO? Is that it? Or
No, the PVC
when
is,
we're looking at the white
yeah, when you're looking up, if you see kind of the glowing squares, that's the kind of stretch PVC material. So that's just,
okay.
just below the skylight.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Heather is asking, can you talk about the flooring? And Heather, you can unmute yourself if you want to elaborate.
So we used terrazzo throughout, but yeah, I don't know, maybe you have a more specific question than that?
Is there a process that you guys have to making everything so slick and beautiful and perfect? Like, what is it? What is your secret, Monica?
Secret sauce. Yeah, we can't reveal that.
I think that's all what we really want to know. But Marcos is asking what the skylight vendor is.
Oh, the skylights were all fairly standard deluxe skylights.
Very cool.
Of course, the kind of the custom part is all the shrouds below the skylight.
Okay.
Drilling down into the interior, all the furnishings are quite wonderful too. Is that XTEN, or did you work with an interior designer, or the owner's furniture? I guess the sofa system looks pretty custom.
Yes, the owner had a big hand in the interiors, but also we worked with Alison Palevsky, interior design, a local interior designer, who just came in and really, you know, because it was really building on the architecture and finding the right pieces that would fit this house. So she did great work with us on that.
Have you worked with her before?
Did we?
With that interior designer?
This was our first collaboration. We had known her for quite some time. Yeah, and we would work with her again. You know, I think the lucky part about this project was that everybody that worked on it we got very lucky with everybody, including Allison.
And on that note, Jennifer is asking, how was the design process with the client and the selling the concept to them? And then how did you select the builder and to build it? Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so the owners, they had done a project with Dobkin Construction before. This was the second house that Eric helped them build. So they were selected actually before we were, and or maybe not before, but I think the owners had a pretty good idea that they were going to work with them again. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
And then how did you really work on selling the client on the design of the home?
So that was actually, so both owners they love architecture. They love mid-century architecture. And, you know, I think the first time we met with them, we walked into their old house and they had a drawing by Richard Neutra up on the wall. So you kind of go in, okay, you know, these guys, you know, when you have clients like that love modern architecture, it's not difficult to be on the same page with them. They were very open. They were very, very proactive. I think that makes it so much easier for architects to come up with, you know, they didn't say no to anything, or not anything, but they were open.
Yeah, I think it was like they you know, we didn't really have to sell them on anything, and I think the other part is just really having them buy into everything. You know, they were deeply involved in the project. You know, and you know, we would be you know, trying to make it as best as it could be, and they were right there with us, right? So that always helped.
And Abigail is asking, did you, how did you meet the clients? Did they find you?
They found us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Lucky us that they found us.
And then Human had another question. If you want to unmute yourself, but I'll just state it for him. How do you marry simplicity and clean lines with a feeling of warmth? Just going back to the secret sauce.
The secret sauce, okay.
I mean, I think so. I think two of the things that help. One, of course, is, you know, materials, which integrating here the kind of tumbled, rougher travertine walls for the fireplaces, kind of dark stained oak paneling. I think that really helps. And I think the other thing that we always incorporate in our projects is really using the landscape, right? Having that, always bringing that into the house as much as possible.
Yeah, and the light, you know, how does the light enter the building? Because sometimes, you know, all you need is just a beautiful wall and a shadow on it, and you just, it can be an amazing space. So in this house, I think particularly the control of the light and the shadow was critical. I think some of the spaces that you see this the most is when you arrive at the property and you just see these very simple white walls, and depending on how the sun hits that tree, you just get this very cool play of shadows on that wall, and the way the grass moves in front of it. So it's really about highlighting some of these very, very simple things and slowing down time and just making you pause and take a look around you. This is not a house that you want to, you know, rush through or run around in. You just kind of, you feel, I think it feels, it slows down the pace.
Yeah.
And I think that's the calming effect of these very simple forms.
It is funny, in a way, it's like the house sets the pace of the life lived in it.
Okay, we just have one other simple question, and I think we'll wrap it up. Did you take down an existing home on the property?
Yes, we did. So on the property was a sort of, I think it was built in the 1950s. The building was sort of surprisingly very, you know, the hillside was very steep when we got there. And the project, the existing project kind of just sat at the edge of the street. So by changing the plan of the house in this way, we were able to probably quadruple the area that the owners, for the space for the owner, that garden and the pool, you know, that was basically non-existent before this new design.